Okay, so in today's video, I will be going over the Apple M1 Macbook Air, so the newest MacBook Air, and also the Samsung Galaxy Book Pro. Hopefully by the end of this video, I would have helped you somehow with your purchasing decision if you happen to be in the market for either one of these two computers. Let's go ahead and jump in. All right, so I would like to add that if you are a student getting ready to go back to college or to go to college and you happen to be in the market for either one of these two laptops, this would be a good video for you to watch. All right, so let's go ahead and start off with the Apple M1 Macbook Air, obviously designed by Apple. It's a thin and very portable laptop, very well built in that all metallic unibody frame. It feels very dense and just solid to the hold. And it's of course one of the lightest laptop that Apple makes. But in this comparison, we will find it heavier than its counterpart, the Samsung Galaxy Book Pro, which also is a thin laptop, actually is a very thin laptop. And like I've said before, the weight alone makes it not even feel like a computer at all. It feels just like an empty shell. It comes in at 1.9 pounds. It's a good build, but just doesn't feel as premium as the MacBook. Now, with that being said, even though it's very thin, Samsung was able to somehow manage to slap quite a few ports, that, a diverse set of ports to this laptop, unlike Apple did with the MacBook. Here you get an HDMI port, a USB Type-C port, a Thunderbolt port, a headphone jack, a USB Type-A port, and also a micro SD card slot, which will offer you the opportunity to expand that internal base storage that you have on the Galaxy Book Pro. Now, the MacBook Air, on the other hand, only has two Thunderbolt port and a headphone jack. Let's talk speakers real quick. When it comes down to speakers, the MacBook speakers, are upwards, they fire upwards. The Galaxy Book Pro, on the other hand, has down firing speakers, and they are at the bottom of the laptop. So as you would imagine, if you have your Galaxy Book Pro sitting flat on the table and the speakers are on, the sound is a little bit muffled. It's not completely muffled. You should still be able to hear, coming out of the shell, but it just, cuts the audio down a certain level. Whereas on the MacBook Air, you have speakers firing up where you can actually hear, and the sound is actually fuller, and I would actually even say crispier than coming from the Galaxy Book Pro when the Galaxy Book Pro is sitting flat on the desk. They both have fingerprint sensor to unlock the laptop. They have backlit keyboards, and they both feel very nice to the touch. But both the keyboard and the trackpad on the MacBook Air M1, they feel better than the ones found on the Galaxy Book Pro. Better keyboard, soft touches. Also, again, the keyboard on the Book Pro is nice, but just not as nice as what you would find on the MacBook Air there. The trackpad, yeah, the MacBook Air definitely has a way better trackpad than what you have on the Book Pro. And in my humble opinion, the MacBook Air keyboard and also trackpad definitely feel a lot more premium than that of the Galaxy Book Pro. That's just my humble opinion. Plus, on the MacBook Air, you can actually use the entire surface of that trackpad versus the Galaxy Book Pro, where you cannot click at the top part of the trackpad. And before I forget, if this is your first time visiting, well, welcome to the channel, of course. I truly hope that you're enjoying the content so far, and if you are, I truly appreciate that. Please do me a huge favor, hit both the like and the subscribe button there. It's a tremendous boost to this channel here, and again, I very much appreciate it. All right, so let's go ahead and talk displays. This is where the Galaxy Book Pro actually shines a little bit more than the MacBook. I would say that it definitely has a better display when compared to that of the MacBook Pro. They both are 13.3 inches, and the MacBook will have an IPS Retina display that pushes up to 400 nits. And the Galaxy Book Pro is boasting an OLED display. Now, it won't get as bright as the 400 nits that you will find on the MacBook Air IPS display, but I'll tell you what, beautiful screen, right? Image quality, super crisp, amazing contrast, saturation. Samsung is known for saturation, right? So highly saturated, great contrast, not overly saturated, but colors are just like very intense, right? Reds are super red and blacks are very black, just like a typical OLED. Keep in mind, however, that when outside, especially if it's very sunny, when working on that laptop under direct sunlight, you might need a little bit of squinting if you want to be able to see what you're looking at. So it's not as bright, you know, obviously it doesn't push as many nits as the IPS display you found on the MacBook Air. So if you are using it indoor, oh, it's a beauty. If you're using it in a dark room, it's even more amazing. But when you take it outside, when it's very sunny and, you know, you're in direct sunlight, viewing angles kind of suffer a little. And I also want to add that the resolution is 1920 by 1080 on that OLED display. So that is definitely a factor that you want to keep in mind as you're shopping for either one of these laptops. The resolution on that IPS display on the MacBook Air is actually 2560 by 1600, I believe. So you have to factor that in. Again, you know, higher resolution as opposed to that OLED display you have on the Galaxy Book Pro. Now, they're both, of course, are boasting webcams or, you know, cameras, 720p cameras. So I would say don't expect top of the line webcam on either one of these laptops, but I can already tell you straight up that the M1 MacBook Air 720p camera that you have on there is definitely better than what you would find on that Galaxy Book Pro, which is also 720p. You know, both the sound and also image quality better on the MacBook Air. Now let's go ahead and cover performance. The Galaxy Book Pro base model that I have here is running an 11th gen Intel Core i5 processor, and we are looking at a 2.4 gigahertz for speed, and that can be turbo boosted at up to 4.2 gigahertz. It is indeed coupled with 8 gigs of RAM, and the internal storage is 256 gigs. That's SSD, and as I mentioned, you can expand that internal storage at up to 2 terabytes. Overall performance is actually pretty great. It's pretty zippy, very responsive, and I haven't encountered any type of thermal throttling. Everyday tasks from light to medium to even heavy productivity will be handled here without any issues. I actually even did a very light level of editing, a 4K video, and that came out pretty neat also. It processed fairly quickly, but you have to keep in mind, of course, that this is not a productivity machine. It's not a productivity laptop. It's not made for super high gaming. It's not made for like super high level of productivity work, but still it can handle its own. And of course, when I say this is not made for gaming, I simply mean that you can still game, you can still do some level of, you know, light to medium to moderate level of gaming here, except when it comes out to like super heavy games, you know, those very demanding games, obviously this is not made for that. The M1 MacBook Air, on the other hand, of course, is boasting Apple's latest and greatest, right? The M1 chip. That is a really, really powerful chip. It's also coupled with 8 gigs of RAM, and performance here is top notch, top level for sure. It has 256 gigs of internal storage also, and this laptop can be used to a certain extent for high productivity. It powers through tasks without any issues, including video editing. Now, of course, you could get top level or optimum level of editing when using a different, you know, souped up Apple computer, but this MacBook Air can handle some serious video editing. It's, you know, performance has been really, really good on here. Very, very impressive. All right, so now let's go ahead and talk battery. So going back to that performance, so overall, when it comes down to performance, actually, I guess my take is that, you know, the MacBook Air definitely performs way better than the Galaxy Book Pro. All right, so let's go ahead and go talk about batteries now. Both batteries on both laptops have been really good. According to Apple, the MacBook Air should push up to 18 hours, whereas Samsung, on the other hand, is advertising up to 21 hours on the Galaxy Book Pro. And of course, this all depends on your type of usage, right? So it's pretty subjective to what you use it for. You know, you can probably have it last longer than I do, or maybe won't see the same amount of time that I see with it. So it will depend on what you do with your laptop. Also, another thing to note here is that the MacBook Air, the M1 MacBook Air here comes with a 30-watt charger versus the Galaxy Book Pro that comes with a 65-watt charging brick. So a 65-watt fast charging brick, so it charges faster. Now, talking price, they're virtually the same. The M1 MacBook Air is going to run you $999, so roughly $1,000, and that's also going to be the case with the Galaxy Book Pro. That also is $1,000, and I'm talking, of course, with the base configuration. Now, here's my take. Both of these are very nice devices, very nice laptop, with each one having its own sets of pros and cons. But if it comes down to me just recommending one based off what I've been using and what my experience has been like you know, using either one of using both laptops, I would say go for the MacBook. Go for the M1 MacBook Air without a question. You will have a more robust build that you can kind of whip around the campus in your backpack with no issues. It's just a solid laptop, and it's without a doubt a more powerful computer when compared to the Galaxy Book Pro here. And if you happen to have another Apple device, it would synchronize pretty well with it, you know, within that same ecosystem. And I'm not saying that the Galaxy Book Pro couldn't do the same thing. You know, the Samsung ecosystem is pretty robust also. So if you had like a Samsung phone and all that good stuff, you can always connect and be able to have that Galaxy continuity with the Galaxy Book Pro. But in this case, I'm just saying I recommend the M1 MacBook Air, and if you just happen to have other Apple stuff, it would also work well with that. But anyway, that's just my take. I hope this was informative. Of course, let me know what you think. If you happen to own either one of these two, you know, if you disagree, let's go ahead and have that little conversation going in the comment section. I'm going to catch you in the comment section. Don't forget to like, share, of course, if you know a student or anyone, a parent who would be interested in watching this video before making their decision. You know, that's just my recommendation. Obviously, I'm just trying to help you make a purchasing decision. I'm going to catch you in the next video as I always do. And of course, make sure to stay safe up until that next video. Actually, let's just put it this way. Up until that next video, stay safe out there.